Hello and welcome to the first episode in the CAL FIRE Office of the State Fire Marshal's webinar series. My name is Kara Garrett and I will be the moderator of this series. If you experience any technical difficulties, please do not hesitate to call me at 916-201-5539 or send me a text, or also send me an email at kara.garrett@fire.ca.gov. This webinar will last about an hour and it will be recorded. Please type any questions into the Q&A portion of the screen and we will answer as quickly as possible. After our featured speaker has completed their presentation, we will be holding a question and answer session. If you have any questions after the webinar has concluded, we will be providing contact information for each contact to allow you to reach out to them directly. Today's webinar will focus on energy storage systems, and to get us started, we have State Fire Marshal Chief Daniel Berlant here to say a few words. So Chief Berlant, take it away.
Yeah, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Energy Storage Systems webinar that's presented by our Co-Development and Analysis Division. Crystal Sujeski, who you will meet here momentarily, not only leads our regulations in fire code and building code development for us here in California, but really represents us sitting on a number of committees nationally in this space. And so she is going to present to all of you information that is out there. Many of you fire department representatives have already dealt with the various components of ESS or even battery storage, BESS, as it's also referred to, but we're really trying to work to make sure that we're communicating the resources that are available to you, the latest codes that are being developed related to this, and the most up-to-date fire service training to make sure our firefighters are prepared as well. Really, the use of technology to harness energy and power everything from scooters to cars to our households is remarkable, but our awareness of the fire risks that can be posed by this technology, it is so critical that we are using it in a safe manner to meet the state's green and energy reliable goals. But our role really here is to partner with our fire departments, our AHJs, our building officials, and many of our other stakeholders across California, just to make sure that we understand the dangers and that we mitigate them to keep Californians safe. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning, and I'm going to turn it right over to the team so we can dive into such an important topic.
Thank you so much, Chief. So now we will go ahead and turn it over to our presenter, Chief Crystal Sujeski, to introduce herself and to share information about energy storage systems. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, good morning, everyone. As Kara and Chief Berlant said, my name is Crystal Sujeski. I'm the current Chief of Code Development and Analysis. And, I'm going to talk about some very high-level items on energy storage system, just to get the information out there. And we'll go from there. So, Kara, should I share my screen now?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay.
Perfect.
So you can see it okay?
Yes, Chief.
All right, so why have energy storage system? This question is asked, what are the benefits? Why do I need it? And, what is it going to do? So really, the main reasons why you would do this is that it helps to smooth out the demand of electricity for customers, and avoiding the price spikes during those high demand times. Reducing that peak demand, one significant advantage is to allow the power grid to have smooth transition, so you don't get those high spikes or low lows. It also enhances the grid reliability, and then contributes to not having any blackouts or grid failures. So this illustration really lies out, it's a backup power source. You can harness your solar energy for those peak demand times. And then on the utility and commercial side, there's various number of ways that they can help with the grid demand and avoiding those peak costs. So the system types that are out there that we're going to just explore, again, very high level. Residential, the units themselves are limited to 20 kilowatt hours. Specific code language is designed for those detached 1 and 2 family dwelling space. And then commercial systems, retail, manufacturing facilities, and then limited to the unit size of 600 kilowatt. Utilities, the front meter installations under exclusive control of the operating utilities. Again, there's a lot of value in that. And if you do have jurisdiction over those types of systems, then, there are definitely precautions because you are dealing with very high voltages. So residential energy storage. Packaged ESS systems, as we'll call them, are designed and listed for the residential environment. They likely, have very few field installation parts that you'll be able to see because they're in one unit. But it really comes down to the review and the technical data, where the location of the devices are going to be installed, and then the separation and fire protection features that go along with that. And so what those are, so be familiar with the potential hazards of the relevant type of ESS that's being asked for you to be inspected. Procedure of the installation materials, obviously wear appropriate personal protection equipment at times, and then review and print out your technical documents and understand what the aspects of the ESS need to be reviewed. So inspectors should really be general, inspecting the factory installed components. Electrical systems need to obviously go through the electrical safety required, and all disconnects, junction boxes, raceways, and similar devices will need to be inspected. For the utility scale ESS or commercial energy systems, this is where you're getting a large amount of energy in a container space. And so review and inspection criteria. Have a safety meeting prior to entering the site. Do a general safety inspection of the overall site. That would mean, the separation distances, what are the hazards, the gates, locks, all the features of the site itself. Inspection of the equipment, exterior and interior. And again, those are going to be part of your plan set. The commission plan, how is this going to be implemented into use? The emergency operation plan, what our firefighters and first responders are going to expect, the fire explosion control summary, and then of course signage. And the inspector should have a working understanding of the relevant alarm systems, their meaning before entering any walk-in enclosures or other areas with restricted access. The likelihood of significant safety event, thermal runaway occurring during the inspection is exceedingly remote, but understanding how the major systems function, you should be prepared for that pre-inspection safety briefing within any project and with the owner there. Now, there's a number of documents that you have access to for those requirements. Here in California, the International Residential Code and the International Fire Code are the basis of our California codes. So those are the model codes. NFPA 70 is our electrical code, model code. We modify it here in California. It's part of Title 24, the California Building Standards Code. And then the standards for those systems are, NFPA 855 is not currently adopted, but it is a really great tool that has excellent information on the systems itself. Now, UL 9540 and UL 9540A are a test standard for the systems, and then a test method to meet certain criteria when you have those situations that in a location that you need to provide additional information for the system. Now, what do the building and fire codes, what do they talk about for these systems? Well, it's going to be the size, maximum quantities in certain areas, the separation for other units, and exposures. Separation from the means of egress. That means separation for those areas that we need to get our occupants out of a building. Fire detection and suppression systems. That would be your smoke detection, gas detection. Suppression systems would be a sprinkler system or a clean agent system. Explosion protection is really the container that it's contained in. And then storage and handling, and of course, the maintenance. This is a growing industry, a growing technology. It's only 8 years really in the infancy of this energy storage. And so the maintenance of these systems is going to be key to look for degradation of the materials when it's time to replace, and then really guidance from those manufacturers and installation materials. Now, the intervening code cycle, 22 for California, we did some updates. They are currently printed and available on the Building Standards Commission website. They will become effective July 1st of this year. So let's explore what those new code changes are. This is a picture outlining the placement of energy storage systems for residential use. Currently, it's 3 feet from any opening to the space. And then the maximum per unit, like I said, for residential is 20. The changes that are coming to table 1207.11.4 in the fire code, excuse me, and then chapter 3, R328.5 in the residential code are increasing the maximum aggregate ratings in certain locations. So the unit is 20, but now, because of the demand of electricity for our devices, the movement to clean energy, renewable energy, and the initiatives it brings. In California here, it was really being asked by our stakeholders to increase those aggregate ratings for the areas. So you can see for the utility closets, basements, and utility storage spaces, it's a max 40. That's inside the dwelling space or unit, but it is separated with self-closing doors in those areas. In attached garages, again, 80. There was no change there, but it's in the exterior when it's on the exterior wall of dwellings or attached garages, it did increase to 100 maximum. And then so forth and so forth. So I'll just read them out. So on or within 3 feet of exterior walls and attached garages, 200 in detached garages and detached accessory structures, 200 is the maximum aggregate rating. In detached, where it goes actually further away from the main residential structure, you can go up to 6. Outdoors on the ground, 200, and then outdoors on the ground when it's further away, 10 feet away from the main building, 200 kilowatt hours. So micro mobility devices, again, we're talking about lithium ion battery being the most prevalent out there. There are new technologies advancing every day. But the State Fire Marshal's office, we put out an information bulletin 24001. And what that is a safety reminder, really, telling you guys that, hey, we understand this is a alternate means of transportation. It, meets our incentives, but there are safety factors, especially when they're being stored or located in a dwelling space. And so we have a list of best practices, safety considerations, and what to look for if you see damage to the battery. What that would look like, maybe it's bulging, or if it starts smelling or having some kind of a smoke come out of it, that's time to get it out of the space. And so there's a pictorial on the 3rd page, which really helps to illustrate those safety best practices. And I guess I'll turn it back over to Kara. If there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Chief. I will go ahead and take back over the sharing. Perfect. Okay, so first we would like to mention some additional resources. I'll put these in the chat, and this will also be available on a PDF document on our webinars page on our website. But we have the OSFM resources page as well as the code interpretation requests. If you have any specific code interpretation requests, please use that link. And then also the link to the information bulletins that Chief Sujeski was speaking about. So let's now go to the Q&A chat. So first we have Shane Clary. His question is, will California be adopting NFPA 855?
So that's a great question. And, we're really following the advancements at the national level and what's being proposed for the 2027. Right now, we're in a rulemaking process for our next edition here in California. So please look out for our working groups that will take into consideration, through consensus process, that proposal. All of these proposals are recommendations to the State Fire Marshal for the next edition of the codes. And so we understand that is a big one that we should be looking at and needs to be considered. So I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is from Anwar. It says, since the max is 600 kilowatt hour per unit outdoor, what if a unit is 930 kilowatt hour? What requirements are brought up?
Yeah, even getting these thresholds here in California to be more than what was accepted at the international level. We really need to, put these into effect and, let the folks, the AHJs, see what your systems are doing. What are your plans? I think that would really be a question for site-specific, project-specific, alternate means. And you're really going to have to work through the local process, or if it's here in the state, you'd have to work with our Fire and Life Safety Division in that plan review. You know, again, there's multiple ways that you can propose your increases. But really it's going to have to be per site and per project. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And the next question is from Kevin. I believe that we addressed this, but it says, what are the plans for NFPA 855 2023?
Yes, again, we will take that in consideration in our work group for the next edition of our Title 24 California Building and Fire Codes.
Thank you. Next question is from Steve Kessman. Is there any guidance on defensible space requirements around this type of infrastructure?
Yeah, they're quite silent now, but defensible space, if it's mounted on any structure, defensible space around the structure still applies. When it's ground mounted, you should really keep, have the guidelines of at least 3 feet to 5 feet around it. We know from other systems like LPG tanks and even large electrical generators, they have those requirements. So even though there's not something specific for these devices, you should use those as the best practice.
Thank you, Chief. Next question is from Pat Chu. Are these amendments just for California?
The amendments for the increased allowable aggregates, yes. This was introduced at the last international code hearings and unfortunately was maybe misunderstood or really was not accepted there. So when we brought it here in front of the Building Standards Commission with the justification and along with our stakeholder support, it was approved for California.
Thank you. Next question is from Anonymous. Can the 3-foot separation between ESS and openings be a vertical 3-foot separation?
Can it be a vertical? So I think the intent is 3 feet from any opening space. That would be vertical or horizontal. There's not a definite between the two, but if you want anything smaller, then again, you'd have to, have those test reports to decrease any of those requirements. So the intent is horizontal and vertical.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Steve Kessman. Are residential fire sprinkler systems still considered adequate for these systems inside of residential garages?
I believe so.
And the next question, Tim McGrath, when are agencies going to start reporting the cause of fires, e.g. while charging, mechanical impact, incorrect charger, et cetera? This would be really helpful for risk management and policy making in the community.
Yeah, I believe that most jurisdictions are already starting to do that. In our CalSTATS program, there is a plus codes that's been added to reporting for agencies to identify if it was an electrical fire started from ESS.
Thank you. Next question. In the slide shown 20 kilowatt hours and 3-foot separation, how do you define 20 kilowatt hour unit? For instance, if 4 by 5 kilowatt hour units were enclosed together, what and how make the decision if that is a 20 kilowatt hour unit? Meaning, do I have to separate all my units into 3 by 3 foot cell separation, or I can put one of the 4 by 5 kilowatt hour units on the wall without separation?
So it's really going to go back to the manufacturer and installation instructions. And, when they do the test criteria from 9540, the UL 9540 test, it outlines how far they went in that test criteria. Was it a unit, module, or large scale test that they did? So you're really going to have to go back to your technical documents for that particular system. If the unit was tested as a unit, the regulations now say that that unit needs to be considered its own and needs to be separated. So, there is the 9540A test methods that, again, you can work with the local AHJ in reducing those spaces when you can identify and you can justify the criteria you used for the reduced spacing.
Thank you, Chief. And from John Williams, can you speak a little about the placard requirements at residential ESS installations? California Electrical Code seems to be somewhat vague, and it appears to allow latitude to the AHJ to develop some standards. Would first responders prefer a placard at the main service panel with site details? Curious getting first responder feedback.
That's a really great question that's still being discussed at the development phase of the I codes, even here in California. But I believe NFPA 855 gives a good checklist for the signage criteria. So HJs, based on their response capabilities, will, you'd have to check with them to see what their folks want. It's definitely something that they should look out for. Same thing with the PV systems. We want to know where the shutdown is and where the disconnects are, and the signage is going to be per the HJs.
Thank you. Next question. Are there any restrictions in floodplains for residential energy storage systems?
Not that I know of right now.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Will there be any clarification for single-family R2 residents that are similar to R3 in regard to complying with California Fire Code 1207.1?
So the single family, so when you say R2, is that apartment buildings? Apartment buildings are in a different classification because of the increased occupant loads and the dwelling units. So there are already provisions for those types of systems. And for the single 1 and 2 family dwellings, there's a lot more limitations to what you can do for a commercial apartment structure. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Chief. And from Tim McGrath, can we expect rules for charging micromobility device in other occupancies than rental housing?
Yes, I mean, as the availability of these micromobility devices become available, and their usage becomes more, there will most likely, I can't speak to all facilities, but in commercial spaces or in high rises, there'll be what's being seen now is dedicated rooms or dedicated spaces that have the separation and fire protection for those devices to be housed in that area.
Thank you, Chief. Next question. Will the state of California be adopting the 2024 International Fire Code as the 2025 California Fire Code?
Yes, the 24 International Fire Code is the model. It's the base of what we adopt here as the 25 fire code.
Thank you. Next question. Will there be a supplemental informational bulletin specific to practices associated with micromobility devices used or stored in other than residential buildings?
That's a great question. We can explore that, and you're welcome to contact me. I think my contact information, was it available, or maybe we can put it in the chat?
I can definitely put it in the chat. Okay, next question, and then I'll get the email and information put into the chat right now. How do you deal with 145 megawatt systems?
That's a big system. Yeah, you know, when you get up into that utility system, there's more regulations, more criteria, you know, you're really dealing with large voltage. Obviously, you'd have to work with the owner provider and see how that fits into it for permitting, commissioning, decommissioning, all the things that kind of go into those safety plans, site locations, and such. So that's really, you know, if you're thinking about having a project with that large capacity, definitely have pre-meetings with all the right people at the table so that, you know, all the information is out there and you can really understand what it is you're trying to achieve.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take one more in the Q&A chat, and then we'll go to the people who are raising their hands. Thank you so much for your patience. So next question from Danny. Will there be a case study provided maybe in the future to show what kind of documentation will be typically needed to cover all commissioning, decommissioning, and maintenance and other document requirements needed for energy storage systems?
Wow, that would be a really great project. There's several organizations that would probably really like to take on something like that. So reach out on the internet. There's several here in California. Again, you can send me an email and I can connect you with those organizations.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, and we have one hand up. Matthew, I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning, thank you. What would be an approved and acceptable smoke detection system for energy systems located inside of garages? And am I correct that that needs to be monitored by a central station?
Yeah, so the intent of the smoke detection in the garage is to notify the occupants to, you know, that there's something happening there. If it starts to smoke, off-put gases, and to, you know, get out. That's the intent. You know, the regulations say that, you know, it needs to be installed for the ambient space. And if you know, if it's a listed system, it would go through our engineering and fire engineering division as a California listed product here in California.
Thank you. Okay, next we have S. Choi. I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and say your first name as well. SCHOI.
Sorry, I think I got it wrong.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you. Okay, next we have A. Huang, AHUANG. I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and say your first name and ask your question.
Hey, my name is Alex Huang, and I'm from a OEM. I'm just curious, in the process of having some misunderstanding or disagreement among this, you know, what this presentation's content and the county fire department, how can we effectively address or align some of the I guess, disagreement, particularly with a separation and such, separation distance and such. And in particular, something related, what I asked the question is about a 4x of a 5 kilowatt hour question. So how can we, if we have tested accordingly, according to the UL 9548 and it triggered 4 units together, how can this, how can we align with the county and as well as you guys and AHJ?
Yeah, we're really here to help. We have a formal code interpretation process. I don't know if Kara, you want to go back to that screen. Please fill out the request form and send that in. We have a committee that really reviews all the questions. If you put down the local jurisdiction that you're having kind of the dialogue with, we can reach out to them as well to get both sides of the picture. And when it goes through the process, we'll develop a response to your question, and hopefully we'll post it on our website as a formal code interpretation request.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And I'm not be able to copy paste anything from the chat window. Is that something just with me, or like in general, this is not?
So you should have it in your chat feature where you can click on the PDF. That should be a hyperlink, but we also will be posting this presentation as a PDF on that webinar series website. So after this presentation later today, we will have all resources available and clickable in this PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. And that was everyone who had their hands up. So now let's go back to the Q&A. We have about 20 minutes left for questions. So next question is, if a home is not currently sprinklered and places an ESS in the home, does it require a sprinkler over the unit only, or would the whole home need to be sprinklered?
There's no additional sprinkler requirements for the whole home.
Okay, thank you. And then next we had a follow-up about the R2 buildings and residents. So it said more like detached R2 buildings, not wall sharing. So going back to that question from Rachel. Rachel, do you mind if I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute so you can elaborate more on your previous question as well as the ask for R2 occupancies. Let me find you really quick. Okay, Rachel, go ahead. Okay. All right, well, we will go ahead and move on. So next question is, are there similar setback guidelines for commercial batteries as shown with the residential battery installations?
Yes, there's spacing criteria. So I think you saw the picture and the site general plan. You have to have a certain spacing in between your larger units on the site. There's footings and other criteria that go along with those enclosed container larger units for commercial.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, I see you were able to unmute. Go ahead and ask your question for the R2 occupancies.
Thanks, Kara. Sorry about that. Yeah, we have a couple of projects in the city of San Diego where we have, technically they're labeled as R2 residences, but they are more like detached homes where they're only connected to the other buildings on the property by like carports. They don't share any actual dwelling unit walls. And I had a meeting with the city yesterday, and they agree that there's a lot of grayness there. For example, if we were to acquire bollards, which we are in a private carport, we would have to install like 4-inch commercial sized bollards, which just doesn't apply to this type of residence. So I'm curious if the code coming up in July will help clarify this at all, or if you could clarify it at all.
Well, the vehicle impact protection was brought in. It's in current use. There are no plans to change that. And it's really a benefit, you know, to protect the system from, you know, the vehicle impact.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not asking specifically about that. It's just the difference between, you know, it being an R2 residence and having to comply by all of the codes in 1207-1 versus it being more like an R3 residence that would comply by, you know, the codes in the CRC versus the CVC.
Yeah, the vehicle impact protection is in both, and it's mirrored in both codes. So I don't think there's any difference between the two, even if it's an R2 or an R3.
Yep,
For
and I
that.
apologize. I just don't mean about impact protection. I also mean the requirements for like explosion control and other things that are required for R2, which makes sense for, you know, condo buildings and multifamily where there are a lot of shared walls versus these, you know, wilderness standalone projects that where the building is more like an R3 residence, but still are considered R2 by the jurisdiction.
Right.
Like there's no exception for them in 1207.
Yeah, unfortunately not. But again, you know, that seems like a very site specific. And when you limit the amount of kilowatt hours for your installation, work with the AHJ. You can also send us an email. My email's not here, but we can help you work through that with the local jurisdiction. Again, you know, getting both sides of the picture for the site specific application and you know, educate. I guess it's really about education, and that's really what we're trying to do here. We're not trying
appreciate
to you know, I think the main goal is to get these plans and installations to have a lot more success stories.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I did just put Chief Sujeski's email in the chat, and we will go ahead and add the email address as well to the PDF version of the slides so everyone will have access. All right, so next question. The recent California Fire Code has requirements for lead acid battery requirements exceeding 70 kilowatt hours to comply with UL 9540. 2024 edition of International Fire Code has been updated such that this does not apply to lead acid battery systems in uninterruptible power systems in accordance to UL 1778. Until 2025 California Fire Code is adopted, how should UPS with lead acid batteries be classified, as does not seem as though these are tested per UL 9540?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We have two code interpretations with the same question that are being reviewed by our committee. Again, I don't have a response yet since we haven't come to a consensus agreement as to how to really look at these. The UPS systems, or the uninterruptible power supplies, are really important, especially for our data centers. And there is a large interest in upgrading to the lithium ion battery, which would, you know, tip the scale into the 9540. So, yeah, there's this middle ground between the additions of the codes and the technology and the demand for the use. So please, again, you know, use the code interpretation request form to send in your question, because that's a really good topic. And we, as the code interpretation committee, are, you know, we had two requests for a very similar question. So again, it's in discussion. And hopefully we'll get an answer out to you within the next couple months.
Thank you, Chief. Next question from Anonymous. Have you seen any ESS labeled for use in residential dwelling units, which is an exemption of other requirements?
I have not seen that label personally.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can you recommend any educational opportunities that specifically provide training on ESS installations?
On ESS installations. So that's really the electrical code. And Mike Stone is an educator from the, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the organization, but there are organizations that really are specific for electricians, and there are a subset to that for ESS. So again, please send me an email and I can connect you with those organizations that provide those installation trainings.
Thank you. And we did get some couple. Mike Stone is with NEMA.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you both. Okay. Next question. It is my understanding that AHJ can consider the fire report, but is not required to accept it. Is this correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. Next question. For R2 occupancy, can we put battery on wall?
Yes.
Next question. This is from James Carver. He said he wanted to confirm if the new distance requirements are effective with the 2022 intervening code cycle on July 1st, 2024, or were effective with the 2022 codes.
The new distance requirements with the increased aggregates will be effective in July.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have for questions. So final call, if you have a question or anything that you would like to say, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll give you a couple more seconds. If not, we will move on. Okay, one more question. Let's do it. So any recommendations of fire flow calculations in relation to NFPA 1142 with an ESS in a residential garage along with 2 EVs? Tesla recommends a minimum of 3,000 gallons to extinguish a vehicle fire alone. These systems add a significant fuel load inside of a residential structure.
Yeah, they do. And again, that's part of the code development process that's being looked at on a larger scale for the 27 codes. That's a great question. Again, you know, go with the installation. I guess Tesla has a criteria for their systems. That's all I got. It's still being developed. So great question, though.
Thank you. Okay, so that's all we had for questions, and that was the presentation. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe for updates on all Office of the State Fire Marshal updates at our subscription page that is in the chat, and we will also put that on the PowerPoint as well, just so you can stay up to date with everything going on, including the webinars and future webinars that are coming up. So thank you all so much. And Chief, do you have any final words?
No, thank you, and definitely stay involved. You know, ping me if you're interested in participating in any of our work groups, discussions for the next code cycle, and then get involved with your local FPOs, the California FPO committees, or any of the organizations that, you know, deal with renewable energy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. And to close us out, we have Chief Collins, Assistant State Fire Marshal, with us. Chief Collins, would you like to say any final words?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really have enjoyed this. I hope everyone else has enjoyed this as as much as I did. This webinar is a great tool, and I'm just to reiterate that it'll be up and available as a resource. And if you've enjoyed it, please share it with a friend so that the information can get as widespread as possible. Obviously, this is a super hot topic for everybody in the state moving forward. So I really appreciate the and I hope everybody enjoyed the format as well.
Thank you, Chief. We will go ahead and end the webinar now. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.